How about let the kids leave? No. How about let food in? No. You have the most precise munitions in the world, but you're blowing up Christian churches and schools and hospitals? Tell me why you're doing that. If that conversation even begins, there's no way to win that debate.
Now, you do know that, first, targeting civilians and starving kids and doing all that stuff directly as a tactic would be terrorism,
This is terrorism. What the Israeli government is doing in Gaza is terrorism and
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes, and this Tucker Carlson conversation with Pastor Doug Wilson contains a moment that stops the show. Wilson said Islam is a greater threat than the Jews, called every major English city Muslim-led. And when Tucker asked whether the problem is religion or crime, Wilson answered, that is the same thing. There are also specific factual claims embedded throughout this exchange that need checking, from AIPAC spending figures to the Christian population of Qatar to the cost of the Iraq and Syria wars. Hit subscribe because Truth Review checks every number down to the source. Now let's get into it.
Guarantee is meaningless. Israel's important because we say it's important. That's the only reason.
Well,
what's its strategic importance other than that? Are there trade routes that go through it? They have a ton of oil we need? Like, what is this? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think it's a very simple thing, and that is going back to our friends, the Christian Zionists. They're a huge voting bloc in American domestic politics. Right?
Well, of course,
right. And so anybody who wants to be successful in American politics on the right of center has to demonstrate
You're absolutely right.
Has to demonstrate an affection for Israel.
No doubt. But what I'm saying is, like, at some point, I get that, and that's the core weakness of our system, is that it's easily subverted by blocks of voters who are highly organized. Okay, got it. Jefferson worried about this. It's been a problem for a long time. I'm just saying, at this point, you kind of have to have room for independent judgments about what is in our country's interest geostrategically. And we have so wildly inflated the importance of this tiny country, which I think is a beautiful country, and I can't visit, but I want to because I love it, that you're like, well, we have to be more closely allied with Israel than any other country. It's like, well, why? And no one can answer you. Well, because they're threatened. Well, so are a lot of countries. So is Rwanda. So is Congo. I mean, I've just traveled too much. Like, they're not alone in having neighbors that don't like them. Right. And so, but why is that my problem when we're about to run into this brick wall of debt obligations?
I would say, and this is going to take more time than we have, but the people in this instance, the people who don't like them, the Muslims, surrounding Muslim countries, are also people who don't like us. And Muslims...
Who specifically? Which government are you talking about?
Okay, that's the government of Dearborn, Michigan.
A lot of the Muslims in Dearborn are Christian. Well, I mean, a lot of the Arabs in Michigan are Christian, so just like in point of fact. And I'm okay with them because they're fellow Christians, even though, they look different. But I don't know. I haven't been to Dearborn in a long time. I can't speak to Dearborn. I'm against, I'm a Christian, but I rate that against the actual threats.
Well, think of it this way. I've seen England for years. I've seen England as 20 years behind the continent and America as 30 years behind England. And currently every major city in England is governed, it has a Muslim mayor. Their immigration policy has been disastrous like ours. Only ours, our southern border, has been largely Pentecostals and Trinitarian Catholics that have come across the border. Right. Islamists in Germany and Islamists in the UK are an entirely different
thing. I have family in Europe. I'm there constantly. I was there like 10 days ago, so I agree with you completely.
And so someone could argue, as I would, that the Muslims who are threatening Israel are Muslims who are threatening us.
Yeah, I mean,
Islam is a greater threat than the Jews.
Yeah, is the problem with the Muslims of Europe that they're too Muslim or that they're criminals?
Well,
I mean,
that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's not though, actually, and it's not. And
no, the Muslim.
Let me ask you this, and I'm totally not for Islam. Okay, I'm a Christian. Why are there twice as many Christians living in Qatar as there are in Israel? Do you think?
Twice as many Christians in Qatar as
in Qatar. Yeah, the Islamist slave state
Yeah.
that we hear so much about. But there are twice as many Christians living there as in Israel. And they can leave if they want. They came freely, but there are twice as many in Qatar. Why do you think that is?
Can they build churches?
Yeah, actually, the state gave them the land for their churches. But why is that? If what you're saying is true, because it's not true, actually. Right. Islam is false. I don't believe in it. Right. Don't want my kids to be Muslim. I'm not Muslim. But we have the reality that you experience when you get outside the American media biosphere is so different, the reality, from what you're describing. The second question I want to ask is, how do we get all these Muslims here after 9/11? They all came after 9/11.
Yeah.
Who encouraged that exactly? Who encouraged that? And it's a lot of the same people who are now encouraging us to hate Muslims. Actually, ADL was totally for it. Totally for it. We want to make
who?
ADL.
Oh, ADL.
Completely for that. You could not, for 25 years. No, they encouraged that. So what is that? I don't know what that is, but I know that the same people who are like Islam is the problem are the same people who brought us all these Muslims here.
Right, because
I feel like I'm being played a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. The left wants discord. The left wants to foment problems.
They don't like white Christians, so they wanted to dilute the population in the United States, and they did it systematically through migration, and they did the same thing in Western Europe. And I think we should stop all immigration, period. And I would also say that at this point, you can't, we have this non-Christian society. Like, we're not going to have an overwhelming Christian society in my lifetime, sadly. But what do you do with that? And the first thing you do is recognize that attacking people on the basis of their DNA is going to turn us into Rwanda. And so you have to, and the same people crying anti-Semitism constantly, telling me I can't have free speech rights because there's anti-Semitism, are the same people telling us that we have to hate Muslims because they're Muslim. Well, and how is hating Muslims better than hating Jews?
Yeah, it's not.
Exactly.
If you hate Muslims because they're Muslim, that's
the same as hating Jews because they're Jewish.
Yeah, correct.
I'm out.
But if you are opposed to Muslims who have read the Quran, which I've done a couple times, I read through the Quran,
yeah.
and the Muslim Brotherhood, the people, the jihadis, are not twisting the Quran.
I'm sure. I wouldn't know.
They are being consistent with it, and I see them as a far greater threat to the West than the state of Israel is. And so protecting Israel from Muslims, you could argue, is a roundabout way of protecting. It's a proxy.
How's that work for us?
So
we went to war in Iraq in March of 2003 at the behest of Israel, flat out. Bibi said it. Glad you're doing it. And I don't know, there's no debate about that. And then in the years since, we've gotten millions of Muslims in the United States, millions, since the Iraq War.
Yeah.
So how's that program worked out for us? We didn't have any Muslims in the United States when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And as our support for Israel has become more and more fanatical, which it is, it's fanatical, you can't even discuss it, anti-Semite, we've gotten more Muslims. So I don't think this works the way that we think it does.
Right. I think that the whole system at the top is demented.
Yeah, you think?
But that doesn't change the facts on the ground. We've got the problem that we have in Dearborn is a problem that London has and a bunch of other UK cities have, because we have lost our center. As the poet says, the center gives way.
No doubt.
Everything's sunk. The best lack conviction, the worst are full of passion and intensity. And that's where we are.
I would argue that because we are involved militarily and on many other levels in the Middle East, at the behest of Israel, we're there because of Israel. We have an air base in Qatar because of Israel. We have all these troops there because of Israel. We have a lot of Muslims.
We might have an air base in Idaho, Qatari, if the deal goes through.
But why is that? Because Israel bombed Doha, because they were doing we were doing a peace negotiation with Hamas. Why is that our job? Why is any of this our job? We've invaded the world and then we've imported the world. It happened to Britain. That's why they got immigration in the 60s, because their empire was coming down and they're like, oh, you're from Barbados, you're from Nigeria, those were British colonies, you move here.
Right.
And we're doing the same thing. So how about we don't have actual interests in the Middle East other than oil. Let's just pull back because this is destroying our country. This is an effort to defend what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza, which is totally indefensible as far as I'm concerned. And the more you know about it, the harder it becomes to defend. And basically, if you go down this path, you wind up in a place where you can't, how could you defend that? How about let the kids leave? No. How about let food in? No. You have the most precise munitions in the world, but you're blowing up Christian churches and schools and hospitals? Tell me why you're doing that. If that conversation even begins, there's no way to win that debate.
Now, you do know that, first, targeting civilians and starving kids and doing all that stuff directly as a tactic would be terrorism, would be...
This is terrorism. What the Israeli government is doing in Gaza is terrorism and unconscionable. So that's why there is such resistance to even discussing, like, when is it okay to kill the innocent?
How would you respond to the... this is sort of big if true. So how would you respond to those who say, you're exactly right, to make war on civilians would be awful, it would be horrific, but I think that that's a lie. I don't think we're doing that. Like, an Israeli saying, I don't think we're doing that.
Well, how about we let cameras in right now? And why aren't we doing that? And why have dozens of journalists been shot in Gaza wearing press credentials on their chests or on their helmets or in their car? This is not, I'm not making this up.
Well,
so, and the answer is because they don't want you to see what's actually happening. So let's just open it up and inspect it. But no one denies that tens of thousands of children have been killed in Gaza. It's just an absolute fact. I visited some of their surviving siblings last week. And I'm only saying, look, I spent 2 years not saying anything about it because I don't want to get involved in this fight because I know they're going to like try to get my kids fired from their jobs, which they have, call me an anti-Semite, of course. But at a certain point, it's like, this is hurting the United States, which is paying for it and which is using its credibility to defend it on the world stage. And it's like, how is this good for my country? It's not. Right. And it's also rotted, completely rotted the world that I live in, which is like conservative world. And all of a sudden people are like, it doesn't matter if the kids get killed or they blow up 2 churches in Gaza. I'm a Christian. I have a right to think, I don't think it's good to blow up churches, okay? What do they have to do with it? Are they Islamists too now? And all these Christian leaders
were there tunnels underneath
They
them?
never claimed there were tunnels underneath.
No, I'm just asking.
No, but it's like insane. And by the way, if there were tunnels underneath, sorry, you still can't blow up a Christian church when all your money's coming from a majority Christian country. Sorry, there are limits on what you can do.
Okay.
Tough luck. Again, we should start by saying and ask anybody who's out there trying to squelch criticism of Israel, ask, is it like regrettable, sad, maybe even immoral to kill someone, a child who did nothing wrong? And if you can't say that, then we're just operating from different worlds. I'm sorry. Why can't you say that? Why is that so threatening to say, probably not a good idea to kill a child? They will not say that, and they much less apologize for it. So why bomb churches in Gaza? Tell me. You've got the capacity to put bombs in people's pagers, but you accidentally hit 2 churches? Not an accident. How about you ask for our forgiveness? Well, Israel has not allowed food aid into 2 million people. There's no infrastructure whatsoever. There's no business. They flattened 70% of it. We know that from satellite photos. And so what is that? That's targeting innocent people. I'm not defending Hamas. I'm totally opposed to Hamas. Right. I don't think Bibi should have sent them that much money, which he did and admits. But I'm against it. I'm against all of this stuff.
Right. So if you have 2 groups, Hamas saying, yeah, we did that. We blew up the pizza parlor in Tel Aviv. We claim responsibility for that.
Well, October 7th was like enough of an atrocity to make me pretty anti-Hamas.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good example. Yeah, we did it. We're proud of it. That was our intention.
I'm out. I'm never going to defend you. That's disgusting.
On your, but that's not my point, that you would defend it. I know you wouldn't. The point is that Israel is enough of a Western country to, if they did something bad like that, they would not own it. They would lie about it. They are virtuous enough to be guilty of hypocrisy.
No, they're dependent on U.S. aid enough to manipulate the U.S. media, which they do. Their entire country is dependent on U.S. taxpayer dollars, and the numbers are super clear. There would be no wars fought by Israel alone because it's got 9 million people and no resources, and they have a reserve military. They don't have enough people. A huge chunk of their country doesn't work or serve in the military. So and there are a lot of good Israelis who I know, one of whom is in the Knesset who I just talked to. They're very worried that Israel is like way overextended. And why? Because they're backstopped by the U.S. military. And so this is not my chief concern. My chief concern is my country. But if you cared about Israel, man, they're in a bad spot right now. But no one can admit it. They all have to lie about everything. And the people who lie the most, can I say, are the evangelical preachers. If Israel does stuff that I despise, my view is, I don't want to pay for that. Okay?
Right.
Get out of my country. Stop trying to censor me. But just go do your own thing in your own Eastern country, which is not Western, sorry.
But the conflict there is not caused, the West Bank, the conflict there is not caused by Israel holding the West Bank. Israel holds the West Bank because of the conflict. So when Israel was formed, the next day or whatever it was, they were invaded. So a lot of what the Israel has...
Well, the West Bank was taken by Israel in 1967 from Jordan.
Right.
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 So Israel proper, the West Bank is what we used to call an occupied territory. Now they have a new name for it. But
they have a grizzly bear by the ears. Israel does.
Definitely.
Right.
As a lot of Israelis used to say, like we've got Gaza, we have Golan Heights, and we've got what we call the West Bank. And those are what we call the occupied territories. They're majority Arab, majority Muslim Arab, though tons of Christians, fewer now. But yeah, what do you do with that? You can't call yourself a democracy if they don't have full citizenship, but you can't give them full citizenship because then they'll vote you out. So like, what do you do?
Let's go through the specific factual claims made in this exchange, because there are several worth checking individually before evaluating the broader argument. Start with the Qatar Christian population claim, because it's a specific and checkable statistic. Wilson claimed there are twice as many Christians living in Qatar as in Israel, according to the Pew Research Center and the Association of Religion Data Archives. Qatar's population includes a substantial expatriate Christian community, primarily migrant workers from countries like the Philippines, India, and various African nations, estimated at somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 people, depending on the source and year. Israel's Christian population, according to Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, sits at approximately 185,000 to 190,000 people as of recent counts. So the basic ratio claim that Qatar hosts a larger Christian population than Israel in absolute numbers holds up reasonably well against the data, though it's worth noting this reflects Qatar's large foreign migrant labor population rather than indigenous religious demographics. And Qatar's citizenship and religious practice laws for those communities differ significantly from questions of full civil and political rights. The AIPAC spending figures deserve direct verification because specific dollar amounts were cited with dates attached. According to Federal Election Commission filings reviewed by multiple outlets, including Open Secrets and the investigative outlet Sludge, AIPAC and its affiliated super PAC, the United Democracy Project, spent approximately $100 million combined during the 2023 to 2024 election cycle, with reporting on the specific $126.9 million figure varying depending on which affiliated committees and time windows are included in the calculation. The court claimed that AIPAC-aligned spending played a decisive role in the primary defeats of Representatives Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush is well documented. Both races saw tens of millions of dollars in outside spending from AIPAC-affiliated groups, reported by FEC filings at the time, following both representatives' public criticism of Israeli military conduct in Gaza and their calls for a ceasefire. The Brown University costs of war figures are among the most rigorously documented statistics referenced in this entire exchange. The Cost of War Project, based at Brown University's Watson Institute, has tracked cumulative U.S. war spending and casualty figures since 2001 using consistent peer-reviewed methodology. Their published estimates place direct and indirect deaths from the post-9/11 wars, including Iraq, Afghanistan, and related conflict zones, in the range of 900,000 to over 4.5 million, when both direct violence and indirect deaths from destroyed infrastructure, disease, and displacement are included, alongside total budgetary costs exceeding $8 trillion when the full scope of the war on terror is calculated rather than Iraq and Syria specifically. The specific $2.89 trillion figure cited for Iraq and Syria alone through 2023, along with 550,000 to 580,000 deaths in those two conflicts specifically, aligns closely with the Costs of War Project's own published breakdowns for those two theaters. The Pentagon prayer meeting claim involving Pastor Doug Wilson and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on February 18, 2026, traces to reporting from the Spokesman Review, a regional newspaper covering the Pacific Northwest where Wilson's church network is based. That reporting should be treated as a single source claim pending additional independent confirmation from national outlets, though the Spokesman Review has covered Wilson's Christchurch network extensively for years and has a track record of source reporting on this specific subject. Subscribe to Truth Review. We verify the dollar figures, the population statistics, and the death tolls against their original sources, and we tell you exactly how solid each number actually is.